Welcome to another DAP session, Driver Assistance Program for Extreme Motorsports 99. As usual, this is primarily for people who are struggling to get around the track. This might not help the people that are already running fast laps. I mean, if you're already sub 201, this really isn't going to help you a whole lot. If you're struggling to get, if you're running in the 202s, 201.5s, things like that, this hopefully will shave at least a few tenths off your laps. So we'll go ahead and get started here, and I'll just roll the car around to turn 1, and we'll go ahead and get started. So here we are at turn 1. You should be in 6th gear, right about here actually. You're not going to be in 6th a whole lot, if I remember correctly. The big thing here is, let me get my pen. You're going to want to brake right about here at the end of the wall, which also lines up with about the 300 right here. So this is about where you brake, and then where where I like to downshift is right about, I think about the 200 marker here is where I'll downshift. But it's brake at the wall and get it woed up, because the way this turn is banked, you want to make sure you're tight on the curb, but I'll show you where you want to be and where you don't want to be. So, brake at the wall. I'm downshifting at this patch here, which lines up about where the 200. It's not exact, but those are probably the two reference points. So if you're on somebody's bumper and you can't see this line here, use a 200 as your point there. Then I'll probably downshift again around the 100 into 4th. And at this point, what you want to do is you want it so that you're swinging out here wide, and you want those rights to be hitting on this part of the curb that I'm painting in. That is perfectly fine to hit. All this stuff here, not you don't want to be up in this area, but this is the stuff that you want to hit. You want to hit anywhere in there. That's fine. What you don't want to be doing is hitting this bright white stuff. This right here, at least if your setup is anything like mine, where it's pretty low in the front, it's going to grab, and if you hit that, it's going to, and this is kind of how curbs are a lot around this track, where if you touch them, it's just going to bounce. And you've heard me talk about this in other tracks, but this one seems like it's really bad, where if you touch the curbs, it'll just kind of bounce all the way out here, and then you're going to have a tough time trying to bringing it back into where you want to be here. So I'll be swinging out, coming down, and if I can hit it about here, that's about perfect. If you do go wide, it's not a big deal. I'll show you this has a lot of runoff up here. But as you exit, ideally you want your lefts to be right in this area here. You know, not really crossing that line. Maybe up to the second line here, the seam that's in here. That's perfectly fine. You might find yourself, if you overshoot turn 1, that you might be way out here. That's still not the end of the world if you do overshoot it. So just let it roll. Don't fight the car to try to bring it back into these lines in here. Just let it roll out here, but then bring it back, and you'll see there's this little patch of dirt right here. Concentrate on getting your lefts just to touch that dirt if you're way out in here. So ideally you want to be about the yellow or that seam. But if you run wide, and you can watch in the hot laps, there's a couple laps where I run wide and I'm kind of hustling it back in here. That's not the end of the world. I mean, you might lose like a tenth. I mean, turn 1 is critical to keep the speed up. So even if you come out here and you lose a tenth, you want to make sure you got your speed up. Even if you nail turn 1, if you have someone behind you, they will be able to get next to you at the top of the hill. The draft with this track for some reason is insane. Other tracks don't seem to be this bad. Other tracks seem to have longer straights, and still the draft doesn't seem to be quite as strong. I mean, even backstretch of things like Sebring don't seem to be the draft doesn't seem to be as powerful as it is here. So did a couple practice sessions, and the guys I was with, it was, if you were on them, it was easy to get next to them. So anyway, keep that speed up. That's the main thing. What you don't want to do, like I said, if you're out here, you don't want to be slowing down to try to, or trying to muscle it back in here and scrub all that speed. I'd say even if you were way out here, and what I mean is you might be way out here and trying to kick it back in this direction. And if there's someone to your right, they, in my opinion, they can just kind of move over because they know you're out there. They know that you're coming back. I mean, I wouldn't put my lefts more than right about here, and then kind of hug the line. But I would expect anybody on that's right side to know that you are coming back. If anybody is going to be that much of a jerk and they're just going to run this line like that, my opinion, they deserve to get hit, plain and simple. If you have to, I mean, you can take the off track and just run straight across. It's not going to kill your speed too much just to run through here. You might lose maybe another tenth doing that, but running your lefts across like this, not a big deal. Not really much to say right here, except for I try to stay off the curbs. Just kind of run the yellow here. Be nice and smooth. I'll usually hit this curb like this. I'm just going to run over. I'm not going to draw anything. But I usually hit this one and run right over the grass like that. One thing about this section, though, is if you are behind somebody, and I would definitely practice being behind somebody, because if you run the line that I just ran, you're going to end up going towards this wall, and it's not a big deal. If no one's in front of you, this is easy peasy. If someone's in front of you, the first time I did it, I drifted so much because it takes so much air off the nose that I just kissed this wall probably right about in there. So make sure you practice what that's like, because the front end gets really, really floaty right here. You're cresting a hill, so you're unloading that suspension, so your tires don't have as much grip, and then you don't have as much downforce, so you're losing. It's not putting that pressure on the tires, so it's a double whammy right there if you're behind somebody. So just watch it right there. The other thing is, do not shift early here. Make sure you rev. You're going to be in fifth gear. Make sure you are revving that thing all the way out till you see the red up here. If you shift early, you're still going uphill, and it will just bog the engine. And if they're even within a second, they will catch you instantly. Here, I like to stay with my rights still on the track, on the yellow. I don't like to run over this curb. It seems to just bounce it enough where it bleeds off a little bit too much speed. So this is one of the few tracks where actually, or this section, that I do not run the curbs that much, except for that one back there where I said I run the left over. Here, I pretty much just stay right in this black stuff and make sure the rights stay actually on the asphalt. And then you just let it drift out here. So if it's the first lap, the tires are really cold, and the bus stop is a nightmare on cold tires. So on the first lap, it's going to be sketchy, but it's this 400. This is what I'm looking for. So this is about my break point on the first lap. On a normal lap, I will be maybe on the second lap, I'll run about the 350, and then later on, I'm running close to the 300, which is almost where you can see the asphalt changes right here, the seam. I'm running almost to that. I don't run quite that far. If you're running over the asphalt and you're braking, I mean, if you can brake that late, great, but I can't really get the car to settle before what I'm trying to set up this turn for this right side, and just clipping this curb that's right in there. So first lap 400, second lap maybe 350, and then after that, start judging where you're at. This is the only place that brake bias really makes a huge difference for me. Maybe turn one a little bit. So I'll start the car off at 60 with the setup that I have right now, so 59.9 or 60.2, something like that. Start the race off, and then start dropping it back clicks, pretty much based on how the car feels in this turn. So like I said, if you've watched other videos of mine, there's usually one turn that I judge my bias on, and this is the one that I use. So you can see right about here, this is where I like to brake. So I just passed the just past the 300, and I'm almost at that seam, or not seam, but the transition from the light asphalt to the dark asphalt. Now coming in here, I think the driving line might have it a little bit more left out here, but I like to run my lefts pretty much right about here, my rights about here, maybe a little bit left of that. But what I don't really want to be doing is I don't want to be shooting too straight. It'll upset, and I'll just keep going straight. But the other thing is, if I come in here and like kind of late, or I don't know, bend this more, late apex this more, or whatever you want to call it, kind of stretch this turn out a little bit more like this, it puts me in a really bad spot for this next turn. And what I really want to do is I want to be out in this area over here, because what I'm going to do is, and I'll show you the seam that I really want to hit, but I really want to be turning as little as possible over this curb, because if you hit this at like a straighter angle like this, it will just keep bouncing and go off in the grass. But if you hit it at this angle, it's actually really smooth. You just kind of have to wait for it to, I shouldn't say really smooth, it's smoother, and you can just wait for the car to settle down. You'll see that in the hot laps. I mess up a couple times, but I think most of the time I was pretty good through here. So you're coming in about like this is about where I like to be. This is what I want to see. But then that car's going to really get upset. But I want to be out here, because what I want to do is, and you can see it kind of, I'm going to exaggerate this, it kind of goes up, and then it goes down the way this curve is. So there's this crest all the way across here. I don't know if you can see it that well, but it looks like that, and there's this crest that runs all the way through. So it's like a little mountain. And that's why if you hit it at this angle like you hit here, you're going to go over the peak, then you're going to drop in, then you're going to hit the peak, and then it's going to drop again, and it's going to scoot you all the way out there. It's very difficult if you hit this the wrong angle. So what I want to do is I want to be maybe a little bit out here more, and I want my lefts to trail this seam right here all the way around. And this is a turn you have to be very, very, very patient on, and you just wait for it to settle. If you're too far right, wait till you get back to it. I don't think you'll ever be left unless you just entered it at a really wacky angle, but try to keep those lefts on that seam. So it should look something like this. And it's going to be bouncing, and just stay off, and then once you're good, which might not be till about here, then you can pick up the gas. And also, I stay in 5th gear through this whole turn. I used to go down to 4th, but it's just a little too unpredictable. I think it's easier on the brakes to go into 4th, because you don't have to hit the brakes quite as hard, and you can kind of let the fronts slow you down. But it's just too unsettling going over these and trying to shift back. So I've just got it so that my entry, I can, as long as the back doesn't get too tail happy, just use those brakes. That'll wall you up, and then just run 5th gear all the way through here. And at this point right here, the engine RPMs are going to sound like they're super, super low. Once you get back on the gas, it'll pick up, but it sounds like you need a downshift. I don't think there's any need to. You can experiment. I don't think it's any faster. So you run across. I'm not sure what the seams actually look like after the curb because I'm so used to just running that seam. Okay, so I should say that. So don't run the seam all the way. Run the seam most of the way, because then you want to cut back in. You want your rights now to be about over here, and you want those lefts to clip over this. So looks like I might have been on the wrong seams anyway. Yeah, it's what I told you was correct. This is the seam you want to be on in here. Sorry, I started talking about the seam out here, and this isn't what you want. You want to be on this seam right here. And just run it over. And now it's a straight shot. You can hit the rights. The rights can hit this curb. You should straighten this out. And it's one of the few places on this track where I actually will hit the curbs. One thing I forgot to mention. If you are coming in here and you're side by side with somebody, you got somebody on the inside, if you are afraid that that person, you're going to get damage or you know, you're going to get collected up with this person and it might ruin your night. I don't know if it's maybe it's first lap, whatever it is, you don't trust the person. If you're side by side, I would just go straight full throttle, as long as when you rejoin you're not nailing somebody that was, you know, a couple seconds ahead of you. Just go through here. It's only going to cost you about 1.5 seconds, which is less time than possibly going, you know, side by side, running in the grass, trying to collect it, etc. Going straight here, you'll lose it about 1.5 seconds, and I'll put up a sample of that, and you'll see the delta. And I didn't even burn my time off correctly. It was kind of on the warm-up lap with cold tires. I think I lost 1 second, 1.6, 1.7, something like that. But you could probably get away with only losing 1.5 seconds, just blowing right through this at full throttle.
Cut that corner, we've got a slow down penalty.
Pretty much full throttle all the way through, and I'm letting off maybe a little bit before or maybe right at where this grass meets the concrete. So right in this area is where I want to be letting off, but I want to be out here really wide and arc this in, and I'll show you why in a second. So if you have a car in front of you and you can't see this, you should be able to always see this mark here where the this padding for the wall ends. So where the black stuff ends, so that, there, and about like that. That's what I would let off and start doing your turn in, but you want to be out in this area first. So you're out here, and then you're staying fifth. You don't need to go to fourth here. I used to go to fourth here as well. There's no need to really go into fourth, just kind of let off and coast. And what you're trying to do is you keep that wheel, if you see here. I don't run, I forgot to turn my steering wheel on for you guys, but you can see it down here in the lower left. You see me talk about 90 degrees is about as far as I usually want to turn. But on this sweeping turn, I might not even go that far. I might just even put it out about like this. So maybe that the left spoke at about 11 o'clock rather than 12 o'clock. And you're going to let it come across in here, and what I'm looking for is, and I'm going to not be on the line, I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. This, I'm not sure if that's a camera thing or what that is, or whatever's inside of this little, protected by this cage, this is the point that I really want to aim for and pick it up. So I don't really want to be at the curb yet. I want to hit the curb in this area here, somewhere in this area. It'll kind of float around based on how you exited the bus stop and things like that. But this is where I would, what I'm trying to hit, what I'm trying to shoot for. So I'm kind of on the throttle and letting it float in. And this is another one of those turns you can't say, okay, this is, I can tell you exactly where to let off, but I can't exactly tell you where to pick it up, because I kind of roll on here and I'm just kind of playing with the throttle, and I'm trying to make sure I can hit this. If I'm a little bit too far right, then I'll hit the throttle a little bit more to kind of get the car to drift left. If I'm out here more, then I'll stay off until I know I can hit this portion here. That's what I'm really aiming for. So I'm kind of out here, and then once I'm confident I'm going to hit that, then I'll just go ahead and slam it on, because this turn will kind of just pull you all the way through. Sorry, the differential kind of jerked on me a little bit. And it's okay, because you want to run over here and maybe just have the tires touch the curb here. If you can stay off of it, probably even better. If you do make a mistake and you're running a little bit too hot and you're out here, don't worry about it and just run over the grass here. If you go too far, it'll be an off track, but it's not that big a deal even if you run way out in here, because you should be at least starting your turn to go this direction. And as long as you're kind of aiming that way, if you hit this grass, it's not going to like magically suck you in the wall. Just keep it right and you'll recover very easily off this grass here. Now this is one of those turns where I don't have a really good brake point. It's usually like just before this asphalt, right about here. I don't have any signs over here. I don't have any trees. I don't have anything on the left. There's no weird anomalies in the paint or anything like that. So all I can say is a little bit before the asphalt. If I'm braking at the asphalt, I think it's a little too late. I'll have to watch my hot laps, but like I said, I think it's right about in that area. Staying wide, and the apex on this one is a little bit tricky too. So it's staying out wide, playing with the throttle, starting to arc it in, and it's right about in here. This is what you want to hit, this dirty stuff. Right about from here to here. This is that area you want to be running over. You'll see in a little bit, this ends and there's a little like white spot. So as soon as I see that, I know I'm good. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Coming through here, and this is what I was talking about. If I can see the transition from the yellow to the white, I know I can usually pretty much hit it really hard. This is actually the angle I don't want. Let me see here. It usually looks a little more like this. It's about like this. And I should be able to get full throttle at this point. You're gonna let it run out here. Play with the throttle if you can, or if you need to. If you can run full throttle and it's gonna stay on the, on the white, great. If you feel like you're gonna be running off into the grass, let off. You don't want to be running off the grass while you're trying to bring it back this way, because chances are you're with this, like you only have a couple feet of grass here. There's not much runoff. Chances are it's gonna end up just floating right into the Amco barrier stuff over there. So for the first lap coming in here, I'll probably brake around the 200, somewhere in there. But on my second lap or later, you can see there's this little kink in the paint. And this is about where I want to be, maybe a little bit earlier, but I want to be about the 150. If you go too late, you're going to start running off into this area, and this is dangerous if you overshoot this. But I mean, you'd have to really miss your mark to overshoot, because this is a pretty wide turn here. And when I get closer, I'll show you more. But you want your lefts kind of in the middle of this stuff out here. I always say this stuff, but I should say there's this lighter colored asphalt out here. You want your lefts kind of in the middle or maybe even a little bit left of that. You want to lay apex and let this, it's kind of a lazy turn. And it's kind of can be kind of tricky. There's not a whole lot of markings on this one as well. Actually, that little paint's probably a little late, but somewhere right in there, hitting those brakes. And you can hit them really hard here too. I trail brake a little bit here, but I try to get most of my braking done here in the straight line and not really trail brake it too much because you're going uphill. So at that point, I'm kind of like off the gas and letting the car settle, start to rotate, and then I'll pick up the gas. One thing about this turn is I stay in fourth through here. I used to, if I was making a mistake and I needed it to rotate more, like if I shot out, let's say here, and instead of letting it roll more, I have to kind of cut it harder, kind of diamond it to get it back on track. I would throw it into third, but what I found is with being uphill, it's kind of a funny thing where if it's not turning in and I'm kind of letting off, and it feels like I should downshift, as soon as I feel like I should downshift, I just hit the gas, and it starts to kind of come around, and I think it's a little bit quicker than downshifting and trying to get it going back up. Even though you're going uphill, I think it's one of those things where downshifting, it just kind of kills it for some reason in the beginning. It'll have better pickup maybe, but I think it's almost like one of those weird crutches. It's kind of weird. It's like if you feel like you need to downshift, just hit the gas. Maybe not full throttle, maybe 3/4 throttle, get it to rotate, and then you can get the full throttle. But this is about what I want to see when I'm entering this turn. So I want to have my lefts kind of in here. Yeah, I didn't realize that this is another one of those times where I'm going to say, well, if you had triples, you could see blah, blah, blah. But I would say figure out how to run this, because you're going to start with your lefts here, but then you're going to want to keep it, you're going to want to transition it in a little bit more. And it does get narrower, like you can see here that it's really wide from this curb to this point, but you're going to want your lefts out here, but then you're going to want to kind of run them more to the right. I don't think you keep the lefts kind of at the same level. You kind of run it more left and then run a little bit more right. So I'll be kind of out here, but then I'm starting to bring it in a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter. I actually want it to be about in here, and it'll pick up and then it'll swoop back out. So actually it's not too bad, I guess, if you kind of kept your lefts at that same angle, but it kind of cuts in a little bit and then it comes back out. The other thing about this is I like to let it run out all the way out here, and this just seems to be the natural curve for me, and you can see it kind of comes out and then it comes back in. So I will use all this. I'm going to show you, if you get here a little too early, you're going to hit the grass, but for some reason, I shouldn't say for some reason, I think this was engineered, it just kind of seems to work out where I'm coming in here and I'll be entering it right where it starts, and then I'll naturally just want to exit and get back onto the track right when it ends. So I'll kind of run that line right next to the grass. Try not to lift once you get going, because you are going uphill. So as soon as you get back on it, stay on it unless you're going to run off in this little area. If you're going to run into this area and you're not confident you're going to get it back, then yeah, go ahead and lift. But try to stay on the throttle as much as you can here, because you're going uphill. And if you get a bad exit, someone will eat you up going in this next turn. Yeah, I think I misspoke on that last turn. Talk about the paint. kink, this is a good one that has the 150 right here. So first lap, I'll say this, first lap about the 200. It's easy to overshoot this one, for me at least. This isn't one where the tail gets real happy, but what it does is it just starts to induce like a four-wheel slide for me. And it's not like it's uncontrollable, I'm going to crash. It just makes me way off to the side, and it just kills my speed. So I'll do about the 200, which is about like, whoops, not like that. It looks probably about like that on the first lap. But after that, it's this kink right here, which should be about the 150. And let's double check that. Yep. So right in here, right about the 150 is where I'm going to be hitting the brakes and hitting them hard. This, I don't have like a really good turn in. I have to maybe watch the hot laps again, but maybe I might even experiment with maybe even using this as like a turn in point. So don't quote me on that yet. I'll have to watch my hot laps, see what I'm doing. But I might experiment with trying to find a good turn in, because this is a turn that I'm very inconsistent on. There's a couple turns, this one and the last turn is actually the two I'm probably the least consistent on. And I don't know why on this one, because it's got a really nice, it's got that asphalt, that different asphalt, and that's pretty much the line you want to run. And for some reason, I just don't seem to get it right every single time. But you do want to lay apex this one, because when you do, you'll just feel when it whips through. You'll see the time just falling off. So be hard on the brakes, hard on the brakes. Coming in here, coming in late, and do not hit this curb. This curb looks small, but it's kind of like a, if you ever run ovals, Martinsville, they got that curb on the inside, and this thing's kind of the same way. You hit this thing and it's going to bounce you off to the left. So make sure you stay off this. Hit the yellow. You want to be as tight as you can, but you want to be kind of this angle here. It kind of looks like where we're at right now. Like this is the apex, and no, you want to be. You want to lay apex this one, and when you get this right, you'll feel it. It's more like in here. This is what you want to be. If you hit it perfect, you can hit full throttle and you can stay on full throttle. If you don't hit it perfect, and you're going to see in the hot laps that I don't a lot, I'll have to let it breathe to kind of catch. So you'll get that feeling. You want to run it out to the curb out here, but you don't want to hit this grass. If you hit the grass out here, you know, this is going to be a hard one either to recover if you hit it really bad. Even if you don't hit it really bad, it's going to be very, very, very slow out here. You can lose a lot of speed through here. And if you want to see me really make a mistake, watch lap 4 of the hot laps, because I messed this turn up. And what that does is it makes it so that I mess that turn up. It throws my timing off, and I mess this turn up. And then I go into the next left, and I mess up the last turn, and I'll talk about what happens in the last turn on that one. So if you want to see 1, 2, 3, 4 turns in a row that I screw up because it all started right here, it's like a chain reaction. Go watch the hot laps, lap 4. So you're going to actually be out here. And one thing is, if you didn't hit it right, you can just stay in 4th, but most of the time you're going to be going into 5th, and you're just going to be going into 5th just briefly. I don't think you want to stay in 4th and have it bounce off the limiter. I think you're going to lose a little bit too much time doing that. So just go ahead and run into 5th, but you're only going to be there for like half a second. So this turn is another turn where I do not have a really good mark. And it's not necessarily by feel, it's going to be how this curb looks. So I'm looking at this little patch of this curb, and if I see it about like this, that's about when I can start braking. It feels like you're about to start cresting. You don't want to wait for the crest, that's too late. But if I go here, so I'm looking at that curb, and I can definitely see I'm way too early. When that curb looks like that, that's about where I want. So maybe about midway between this crest and my A-pillar, but that is highly dependent on my field of view. I mean, I'm running, I think, a 139. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm running a 139. So, again, I don't know what you're running, but if you're running, all I can say is maybe just test this out and see if it's whatever quote-unquote feels right for you, or maybe it's, you know, how this looks up against the tower, which isn't going to help you if you've got somebody in front of you. But there aren't any trees, there aren't any poles, there aren't anything else. There's no markers to really say this is where you should brake. So I wouldn't say it's really based on feel, but it's like this is what I want it to look like when I'm braking. So sorry if I can't do any better for you. Coming into this turn, I recorded another session saying that I wasn't really clear. I shouldn't say we're really clear. I don't have a really good spot here, and I was kind of going off the visual of what this curb looks like up here. But I just when I was running around for show the pit, this little kink, I noticed I'm focusing in on this guy too. So the sight picture that I showed you in that other one with this curb should be right about there. So as I'm coming up here, my front tires are sitting on that little portion of the paint on the right hand side that I was just showing, and you can see I'm almost at the halfway, like I was saying before, halfway between the hill and the pillar. That's about the spot I'm braking at, which is this kink right here. You can see how it comes in and then it comes, oops, and then it kind of comes this way and that way. So this spot right here, there, maybe a little bit later. So focus in on that guy if the curb doesn't help you. So I'm going to be trail braking in here and cutting it out here because I'm going to be running this curb, and this is another one of those curbs just like the last turn. Don't touch it. It's not like it's going to make you crash, but it will just absolutely kill your speed, absolutely kill your lap time. So you want to stay out and be very patient. This is another one of those turns, kind of like the bus stop, where you just kind of have to wait on it, and you can maybe be half throttle or so, something like that, and then kind of hit it right about in here. And if you're about here and you can go full throttle, it'll just keep pulling you around. Don't be afraid to hit this curb out in here and bring it back. For this next turn, I would practice not using your brakes at all. Maybe start in the beginning when you're practicing, start using the 200, but I use the 100. So I might let off maybe just a tad before the 100 and use the 100 kind of as my turn in, or maybe you kind of let off and turn at the same time, but it's about the 100 that I do that. I just let off. But I would say if you're just starting off practicing, because it'll get frustrating if you keep running off into that. I'm not sure if it's asphalt now or because it used to be sand. But anyway, when you're just starting off, practice just letting off at the 2, making the turn, and then just keep doing that later and later and later and seeing how that feels. But I don't think there's any need to hit the brakes there. So I'm letting off. You'll see I'm going to keep it kind of wide, but the apex that I use here, the point that I want to hit, is this little, there's like this, I don't know, it looks like there's some sort of transition where it looks really bright, and it's like this is the last bright one, and then it kind of gets into these guys. And it almost looks like there's like a little hump or a kink or something right in there. This is what I'm shooting for. I want my lefts to hit that. And if it all goes well and it's all perfect, I can pick up the throttle and be full throttle and stay full throttle all the way through the turn. A lot of times I can't. I'll start picking the throttle up and I realize that I'm going to keep pushing off to the right. So I'll just kind of keep on it about 75% or something. I don't actually look at it, but you can watch the hot laps and you can see there's a lot of times that I am not full throttle. Even when I start to get back on it, I don't let off anymore. So I'll kind of roll back on, and if it feels like it's pushing, I'll just hold it there and then give it some more. And if it feels like it's pushing, just hold it there until I can step on it all the way. So you can really see it now. You can really see how it almost looks like, a point from this angle. This is that apex that I'm talking about. Let it roll all the way out here. There's two things I'm doing here. One, I'm hitting the brakes at the end of this. So right in that area, that's my brake point. And then I downshift on the other wall, somewhere right in here. So the beginning of this guy to the end of this guy, somewhere in there. This is where I want to be downshifting. Now you'll notice here there's a little piece of grass that just kind of kicks out at you right here. Watch out for that guy, because you're going to be very tempted to kind of run this out here and then kind of swoop back. If you touch this grass, and I think again this is lap 4, maybe 5 in the hot laps, you'll see if you touch this, it will spin you. It doesn't throw you in the wall, but it'll start to throw you sideways because you should already be kind of doing your turn. The back end will come around on you like you hit the e-brake or like I pulled a handbrake. And it'll put you in a 4-wheel slide. Don't freak out. Just go half throttle or something. I think that's what you kind of see me do. In this car, you can recover, so it's not like it's going to pop you into a 360, so don't worry about that too much. So go ahead and brake in this area. Downshift whoops, that was kind of a bad one. But downshift about in there. And then you're going to be turning in probably about somewhere between that kink and that guy. And like I said, this is where I'm like not the most consistent. I don't have a really good mark for my turn in, but I try to follow this asphalt here, have those left sides, follow that through. I'm always surprised on this turn how soon you can pick the throttle up. When you hit the brakes, you're not riding them very much, and you're not hitting them real hard. You're just kind of brushing them a little bit, just to kind of get it wound up a little bit. And once the car settles, it's amazing, because there is a lot of banking here. This turn is banked, and if you get it just right, you can pick up the throttle and it will just roll out to the wall. I'm starting to use my hands, but I'll show you what I'm talking about up here. So you're out here, coming in here, and again you want to kind of hit that kink, and you can actually hit this one a little bit earlier. This isn't one of those turns where I really want a light apex. It's one of the few ones where I'd say I'd kind of hit a quote-unquote normal apex, but you want to be hitting this guy right in here. And in this car, I don't have any trouble with the wall on the outside. I mean, I've come close to it, but I don't think I've ever hit it in all the practice sessions. And I mean, I've been in other cars, and it just seems like that wall is just a magnet for your tires. But in this car, it just doesn't seem like it is. So I'll be kind of in here, running that asphalt all the way out. And you can run it all the way. And you can see the wall. This black stuff actually kind of falls away. So you can see it's like, let me see if it does it here. At least that section does. So as you're coming out here, you can see it's a little bit closer to you here, and then it's going to cut away, and then it's going to be out here. So you can run, I mean, you can run all the way out here, you know, as long as you're not hitting this stuff. You got all this room to run off. And it doesn't really seem to kill your speed running over the, you know, as other parts where this stuff really starts to slow you down with the bouncing. It doesn't really seem to kill it too much. So, again, it might be faster to stay on the asphalt, but I don't think it's really going to kill you to run. Put it this way, it's better to run over the curb in a straight line than try to stay on the asphalt with your wheel cocked. And that's it for the lap. We'll go ahead and now pull it around for pit entry. Alright, so for coming into pit entry, if you're trying to save time and there's nobody behind you, stay off to the left. Practice that. Also, if there is somebody behind you, the safest way to get in here, and I'd say this is the one you need to practice the most, because you don't want this to catch you off guard, is you got a line right here and a yellow line right here. Stay roughly within there. Somebody shouldn't really be anywhere near this area out here if they're not pitting. So if you got someone behind you, make sure you're staying in this area over here. You do not want to be out here and trying to hit your brakes to come in, because that person is setting you up for a pass and you will get rear-ended. So this is the one that I'd be practicing. Hit the brakes the same point you would for a hot lap. You're going to want to try to keep it down. It's probably going to float out on you a little bit. But make sure you try to, again, just pull it right back. Now, if you were doing the fast approach, you're going to be coming in here pretty fast. If you were doing like a normal run, like a normal lap, this is about what you're looking like, and that's fine. But now what you got to do is you have to try to let off a little bit and keep it between the yellows. If you had started between the yellows, it's going to be easier to keep it here. Now, depending on if you did the fast entry or the slow entry, your brake point's going to change. On the fast entry, you're going to want to be braking right about in this area. The end of the barrier here. If you tucked it and kept it tight, you're going to be braking right in about here. So right towards the end of this opening, maybe the middle of the opening. So practice getting it down. If you have a pit button, you know, something like, it's not showing up, but if you have a pit limiter button, you know, hit the brakes and hit that. This isn't one of those tricky entries where you have to brake and you have to hit the gas and then you brake and then hit the pit button or the pit limiter, things like that. This is pretty straightforward. So just work on getting your time so you're not speeding, because the cones are right there. Alright, so now we've done the track walk, we will go ahead and take a look at the driving line. The driving line here actually is pretty good. I'm kind of critical of some tracks, but here I think it's actually I think here is pretty good. You know, I don't think it kind of leads you in the wrong direction. Sometimes, you know, the tracks they have you hit the brakes where you shouldn't, or have you kind of go kind of in a weird line, and I'm not sure if it's just because this is front wheel drive, it maybe takes a little bit different line, but here it's pretty good. So we'll go ahead and walk through the driving line on here. So a couple things there. One is I think the brake point starts about the same as the driving line, so as it's coming up I should be hitting it about the same time, which I do. But I think I maybe ease off a little bit, but then I kind of drag them a little longer. So you can see I'm still on the brakes here. And that's pretty typical. I trail brake turn 1 quite a bit. I ran wide here. I actually prefer to actually be where the line is here. But as you know, like I talk about the track walk, you can run out here and it's not going to eat too much time. So you kind of want to get back. You have your lefts run over that at the most. You don't want to be out in that grass. But overall, again, I like this driving line so far. So for that there, I think the brake point's about the same. Actually, it's a little early for me. I think that's great for like lap 1. Lap 1, again, tires are cold, so it makes sense to do that. And hit them at about the 400, but you know, I'm hitting them a little bit before the 300 here. Now I'm cutting this in a little shallower than driving line. If I was slowed up more, I think that'd be a nice line, but with the speed I'm carrying, I like to cut this off more, because this isn't the curb I'm worried about as much as the second one. And then through here, it's the hair showing off on, and I think some off some more. This is one of those ones you just got to really feel it out each time. It can be different, but be patient through here. Looks like they don't carry it to the left as much. It wasn't exact, but it's pretty close. And when I say it wasn't exact, this might not even though this is my fast lap, it might not have been more my ideal line. I actually think I like this line. This is what I'm kind of shooting for anyway. So maybe I actually do like it. I like a little bit wider entry here. Maybe not so much, but if you are down in this area, it's not going to kill you, but I think this one helps having it out here a little bit more. You don't want to be too far left, but I think this is pretty good like this. And then, again, I like to use all the asphalt out in here. I think the line's fine. The only thing I don't like on what I did is I actually touched this curb. So as I talked about before, hitting these curbs kind of bounces you off, and you'll see I might have actually lost a little bit of time there, but not much. But I really don't like this curb. I think I let off slightly earlier than this. Let's see here. Yeah, see, I let off just a touch before they say to let off. And then I'm coasting, I think, a little bit more through here. Just waiting for the car to settle, because right here is where I want to pick it back up, which is about what I do. So a little bit before that. I'd say, like I said in the beginning, I like this driving line, so I'd probably use it, except for some minor tweaks. Maybe I think some of the areas I was braking a little bit later, and I let off, I think, earlier, that last left-hander there. Other than that, I think the driving line is great for this car on this track. So before getting the hot laps, talk about the weather and the track settings that we're using. Again, this is the weather and track settings that we're using is specifically for the league. But if you just want to compare times, if you're not actually in our league, but just want to compare your times versus what we got going on here, we are looking at 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 47% humidity, winds northeast 15 miles per hour, mostly cloudy, dynamic sky. For Celsius, that would be 24 degrees Celsius and 24 kilometers per hour. The track state is 40% as usual. The setup that I'm using, I'm still working on it, but this is what I've got so far. It's pretty typical of the setups that I run. I got low air pressures all the way around. It's the lowest it'll go. If you're looking at metric, there you are, 165 kPa. If you're using standard or US, that's 24. I'll let you take a look at this. The only thing that's different about this set, actually this is probably closer to most of my sets. I'm running 514 all the way around for the springs. At some tracks, I think mid-Ohio, I think I was running 571. But everything else is pretty standard. One thing I've noticed here is my brake bias. I'm able to put the brake bias back a little further at this track. It's typical, I run brake valve 1. I don't crank this up. I've talked about that in other videos, but I'm running 59% for the brake bias, and then I'll run that down. I haven't done a super long run in here, but over 15-minute stints, I'm still moving that back to about 59. So I don't know if I said if that was 60 before, but anyway, I usually start off about 62, as high as 65 at some tracks. But for some reason, this one it likes a lot of bias. It doesn't get real tail happy. The only time it gets a little crazy is maybe the bus stop, but that's the only one where the trail braking kind of makes the back end kind of come around. So you can see here again, 514 all the way around. 12 gallons standard for our league. And I'll flip that over to metric. And pause it and take a look at that if you need it. And scrolling down, that's what the fuel looks like. Alright. We'll go ahead and run some hot laps. Alright, those weren't the cleanest laps. One thing I do is, the reason why I do the 15 minutes of hot laps is so that you don't just get a single hot lap and think, well, that's what people do all the time. I'm not that consistent. I mean, I'm consistent enough. This probably wasn't as consistent as I usually am, but depending on tire wear, things like that, I want to be within probably about a quarter second, somewhere between 2/10, 3/10, things like that. This car seems like if you make a mistake in this car, it doesn't punish you too bad, but it seems like it punishes you. It seems like it's easier to. Let's put it this way. It's almost harder to make a mistake, but when you do, it punishes you worse than other cars. It's kind of a weird thing. So you can get consistent laps, but if you make that little mistake, it seems to really eat up a lot of time. Anyway, taking a look at my tire wear, I'm 93, 94, 95. This is about ideal for a 15-minute run for me. I like to see about a 1 degree separation, especially between these, or a 1% separation. For the no more than 2 on a 15-minute run, because at the end of a 60-minute race, this will be chewed up pretty well. And I don't. It looks like I haven't tested the full thing of whether or not we need to take. I went to a 60-minute race. I'm not sure if we can get away with not taking tires, but I think it's going to be the situation where not taking tires is going to be the best thing, unless you run a lot more camber up here, and you think you can get the times. Because I'm running a low camber here. I'm running 2.9 for a qual set. Maybe run 3.2, something like that. I test that out. But this is kind of what I expect. Nice even spread there. All right, well, thank you for watching another DAP session. I again hope this helps you out. Leave some comments. Let me know what you like, don't like, and I'll see you next time.